as Gayatri had mentioned, I'm one of the founders of Dasra. Dasra itself was founded 15 years ago, and it means enlightened giving in Sanskrit. And the purpose of starting an NGO like Dasra was the realization that in India we were fortunate to have numerous social entrepreneurs. These are individuals who use frugal innovation to move people out of poverty on a daily basis. Yet for some reason, these individuals were not recognized in India, yet were recognized globally. And so for many of you guys who have been in the CSR space for some time or just entering into this space, I think it's an important note to realize that we have one of the richest civil society sectors that exist in the world today. The organizations that I'm talking about include Akshay Patra, for example, that feeds more than 1.3 million children on a daily basis with the midday meal school program, ensuring that children not only get nutrition, but they actually attend school. Groups like Educate Girls that are working or will be working in 15,000 schools across Rajasthan, ensuring that girl attendance goes up to 90 to 95% in villages that have traditionally had 30 to 40% attendance. And groups like Magic Bus, which focus on youth empowerment to 300,000 youth and children across the country. Because of the rich and diverse sector that we have here in India in terms of the NGOs, we felt it was important as an organization 15 years ago to provide those entrepreneurs with the skills, the tools, and the resources enabling them to take their models to scale. As we all know, the problems are fairly critical in our country, whether it's the 800 million people who earn less than $2 a day, half of our population who do not have access to their own toilets, or various other statistics such as 56,000 women dying during childbirth on an annual basis, and the 1,600 children that die every single day under the age of 5. With these issues, Dasra decided that instead of starting our own organization, which would implement programs, i.e. medical services, education, livelihood programs, etc., we felt it was in our best interest to support the existing ecosystem, the existing network of organizations, and provide them the skills and tools required to take their entities to scale. And so from a Dasra perspective, we realized that our resources would be better spent in bringing professional skills and training to those groups and enabling them to create the impact on the ground. And that's really what created Dasra, and I think that's why we're really excited about the CSR law, because it also enables you as corporates to focus on your core competencies, which honestly is not moving 800 million people out of poverty, but bringing professional skills and resources to those individuals and organizations that are doing just that. And so it was 5 years ago that Dasra decided to use our 10 years of learnings, our challenges, and our working in the field to start working with high net worth individuals, with philanthropists. We realized that this was a group that had the ability to bring in capital, and this group with that capital, as well as with the expertise that high net worth individuals bring in terms of building their own businesses, that can really create a sea change in terms of what organizations need in the country today, and matching not just capital, but also traditional expertise that people have from the business world into the nonprofit world. And to a certain extent, the CSR law, again, reinforces this and allows us to do just that. We see the CSR law as an opportunity, like I said, to move the 800 million people out of poverty, and an opportunity for companies such as yourself to use your skills that you've created in order to scale, whether within the country or outside the country. Those same skills are required for these NGOs. So as Gayatri was suggesting, later in the afternoon, we're going to have 30 odd organizations coming through. Their average budget is 7 crores. Their cumulative beneficiary reach is close to 7 million beneficiaries. And so if you get anything from today's session and in working with Dasra, is they're leaders that are currently doing the exact same work you want to do, and it is in your best interest to support them versus starting something on your own. And this is something, for whatever reason, in the corporate sector we're good at. We understand our skills. We have partners, whether they be vendors, whether they be distribution channels, whether they be even our peers that we work with on a consistent basis. But when it comes to philanthropy, we have a mindset that we should do everything on our own. Philanthropists also had a similar mindset, not realizing that the commitment, the expertise, and the dedication that requires is significantly different. And many times we do not possess those skills to actually make a difference on the ground. And so from a Dasra perspective, we've been doing this for 15 years now. We've helped manage and direct, as you can see, close to $44 million to the nonprofit sector. And we're able to do that, again, by working with those who have access to capital and those who need capital. And I think that matching component is a strong suit of Dasra and something that's made us into an organization that's recognized with the NGO sector, with high net worth individuals, and over time, hopefully with corporates such as yourself. Our expertise lies also in working with a variety of organizations. So we work with education, livelihoods, healthcare, empowerment, you name it, we sort of work with them because unfortunately in poverty, there is no silver bullet solution. So our approach has always been find out the best organizations in a particular field, support them, enable them to scale, and match them up with resources, both professional resources as well as financial capital, enabling them to grow and scale. And this is the real opportunity we see with the corporate sector. It's bringing in funds as well as your management systems and practices to these groups, enabling them to create real impact. From this chart, and I know it's fairly complicated, there's a lot that is required in this sector. As a donor, as a corporate, you need to figure out which sector to choose. You need to figure out within that sector who are the most credible organizations. After you choose that, how can your funding and your hands-on support actually create the greatest amount of scale and impact? How do you measure that impact? And finally, how do you provide ongoing support to those organizations? On the flip side, social entrepreneurs also have needs. Many times organizations, as opposed to the for-profit space where you know your peers or your competitors quite well, because groups like McKinsey do fairly good analysis on what's happening on the sector. In the nonprofit sector, very little research is available on what other people are doing. And so if you look at a value chain, as you do in the corporate sector, even in the nonprofit sector, there's a value chain. Yet many organizations don't understand the role they play vis-a-vis their peers versus competitors in your space. So one of the things that Dasra does is help them understand who their peers are, as well as who are other organizations working in this space. So the group that's going to be coming later today, there's a group of, like I said, a variety of organizations focusing on different sectors coming together to learn with each other, realizing that they don't have to offer health, education, livelihood, etc. on their own, but there are other NGOs that they could potentially partner with. Finally, we look at business plans. We help organizations choose the right donor. Again, thinking of this as a for-profit methodology, your investors and who you have as investors is critical. And this is something that Dasra works quite strongly on. In fact, we have advised many organizations not to take funding from certain funders if we think that their vision and their alignment is not there. And I think that's critical from a funding perspective as well. You want to ensure that these are partners for the long term, ones that you see eye to eye with beyond just the transaction of giving capital. How do I grow and build an institution? This is again critical because any of the issues that we're looking at require significant scale. And finally, how do I continually deepen my impact and communicate it? This is from the NGO perspective. But as you can see with each of these areas, both donor and NGO speak the same language and want the same things. And that's what Dasra really does, is we bring both groups together with the attempt of having everyone on the same table so we're aligned on what we want to do and then move forward with the skill sets that each group brings in. Gayatri is going to go into that slide a little later. But for us, I guess our journey, like I said, for the first 10 years was how do you build capacity with those, enable them to scale? The last 5 years is how do you then bring that resource and knowledge to high net worth individuals and philanthropists? And over the next 5 years is doing the exact same thing, except doing it with corporates. And that's why today we felt it was a good occasion to sort of launch the corporate circle. As you heard earlier from Gayatri, it's called the CSR Circle because we think there's a lot of knowledge that exists within you guys, which over time we hope you guys can also start the knowledge sharing to say who's funding what, how do you decrease your transaction cost, i.e. sharing your due diligence details on an NGO with the group that's here and with the group that's outside of this room, and how do you start sharing challenges that you guys may face, that other CSR representatives may face, but may not have a platform to talk about it. The surveys which Gayatri sent out, or that we've given you guys, is also critical for us to better understand the needs of the CSR sector. So since April, our team has met close to 45 corporates. And the first question that any corporate asks is, what is everyone else doing? And I think that's critical information. Now, if you look at the law, the first time any company actually has to talk about what they're doing is 6 months after the end of the financial year. So we're talking about October of next year is when a lot of this data is going to come out. Dasra's intent is by having these groups and these conversations, we can start bringing you that data much earlier, because I think that data is going to help you make smarter decisions. That data is going to allow you to speak to your senior management, and that data is going to allow you to start formulating a 3 to 5 year plan on creating the greatest impact possible. And therefore, it's important that we get this information from you so we can share it with a wider community and take that impact to the next level. In our sort of conversations with various corporates, many of them originally, I guess, and some of them still were taken back by this law, and they weren't accepting of that. They were wondering why in India, of all countries, was a mandate like this necessary. And just in Dasra's research alone, I think we saw less than 5% of our population actually pays income tax. Yet 1.12 billion earn less than $5 a day. So if you look at those macroeconomic conditions, you realize that there is a need for other forms of development to occur that is outside of the realm of government. And if those of you guys remember when the government passed the education cess about 7 or 8 years ago, they did exactly what the CSR bill could have been, which is, well, let's add another 2% of intake or government income, and then let's solve a particular issue. The reason they actually did not keep the money for themselves, and they've actually allowed corporates to keep this money, is because the government is trusting the corporate sector. The government is saying, corporates, you guys have moved the needle in terms of what India is seen today versus where it was 15 years ago. And if you can use that same strategy, the same processes, the same rigor for the nonprofit sector, clearly development can happen. The government has been very loose in the laws, and they've really given a significant amount of control to you as corporates to make this change and make this difference. And it's really up to you to take the onus on yourself to do something that's honestly much more challenging than perhaps you've done on a daily basis. And that is, again, to make India the true superpower that it can be, but that can only happen if you use your resources, you make this part of your business, and you, again, support existing entities that are there in the market today. And if you don't do any of these, and you don't, honestly, if you don't do it in collaboration, chances are you won't create that impact. Chances are this will become something that you just put on your annual report, and honestly, chances are the government in a couple of years will decide then to make this into a tax versus giving you the independence on where you can place the capital and how you place that capital. So I think the onus is on all of us to demonstrate that we as corporates can actually change the way development happens in our country, and we can actually get engaged in a much greater manner than we ever have been. So with that, I'd like to open it up to a couple of questions, and then we can move on to the next session. Yes. If you could just mention your name and the company you're with as well, that'd be fantastic.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joshua Shri, and I'm from Mastech Foundation. The first thing I need to ask is that you are saying this law and everything, but before this law had come, wasn't corporates been investing? I think it was more than 2% people, corporates have been investing in that. So I want to ask this, like, why we need to take this law as an opportunity? There are many corporates who are already doing more than 2%. So what do you want to say on this?
So I think, and you're right, there have been corporates that have been investing. I think unfortunately it's been far and few between. And so organizations like Mastech, the Godreges, Vodafone, ICICI Bank, and others have been investing large amounts of capital in the social space. Yet many of the companies that we've spoken to, because of this law, are now increasing their giving between 50 to 100x. Demonstrating that, again, not most organizations, which were not as forward-thinking, for example, had this in mind. So it's really an onus or impetus for those groups. I mean, Mastech we've actually worked quite closely with in the past, and you guys have had this part of your mission thanks to your solid leadership. And hopefully it's groups like yourself that can help other companies go down this journey. But the reality is, again, not most companies in India did not do sort of CSR at a 2% level. In fact, they hardly did it at a 0.0001% level. And that's really the benefit, I guess, of this law.
So when you're saying that most companies, so will I be saying that companies which are not as large as Godrej or something like that?
No, even companies with billion-dollar revenues that we've seen have done, like I said, 5 to 10 lakhs of giving a year.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Before we move to the next panel, it would be good to hear from you guys. What do you hope to gain from this session or from affiliating yourselves in sort of a collaborative network talking about CSR? Someone from this table? I think it's not on. Yeah, you're audible. That's fine.
Hi, I'm Ashwin from Credit Suisse. So for us, this is going to be a start of a journey. So the way I see it is that
I think for the
mic. All right. The way I see it is most of the questions you have already listed out there as to what is the things that we need to do from our side just to ensure that there is enough. Is the organization, is the due diligence done on the places that we're going to give in, and what the final impact of the whole thing is going to be, and where is the accountability coming in, as in has this actually gone to the right NGO, has this actually been used, or has it gone somewhere else? So there are all these questions that are opening up, and now this is where I see a few of the answers coming out today.
Fantastic. Anyone from that table behind you?
Hi everyone, I'm Ruby from Nomura. Like all the organizations here, we've also been doing not as much as Mastech, of course, in CSR. I think the expectation that I would have from the workshop today is basically understand from the experience of Dasra as to how exactly a corporate can utilize the opportunity to the best in terms of the impact, because there's a lot of input coming in right now. There's a lot of confusion which is there. How exactly can we ensure that it's done in a structured manner? That's something that I'm looking forward to.
Great.
Hi, my name is Shubham and I'm from Credit Suisse. Hi, my name is Shubham and I'm from Credit Suisse. So adding to Ruby's point, basically the capacity building that we are talking about for NGOs, we also require capacity building for CSR people because it's a very new thing. Right, so a lot of people are still into those gray areas and are not able to answer a few questions. So, right, like you have Dasra social impact for NGOs, if we can have something for CSR professionals also, where they're gaining out of, how are we going to do it, what is the structure, and how are we going to process it, it will be very helpful.
Great. No, and that's exactly, this is the start of a long-term sort of association providing those inputs. And I think some of you have already signed up for a Harvard Business School case study later today, alongside social entrepreneurs, again, realizing and to demonstrate that it's the same issues that both organizations solve, but that input and I think more of that collaboration and working together is critical beyond, again, the transaction of giving funds, and that's what we hope to provide. From this table, anybody? If you could just pass the mic back to...
Hi, I'm Shilpa Karya from DSP BlackRock, and I'm a part of the CSR committee from quite a couple of years. Just to add up to what Shubham and Ruby said, till now at DSP we have been doing a bit towards CSR programs and collaborating with NGOs. But yes, with this 2% impact, what will be the 2% mandate which has now been laid to corporates, it is very important for corporates also to empower our own self and ensure that the money, the resources, whether be it in terms of money or manpower, man-hour resources, what we want to engage, goes to the right channel and is used in the right way, ensure it reaches a wider range of people. So yeah, this workshop will definitely be a way of empowering ourselves, whether we are on the right channel for that. Thanks.
Great. In the back, you have to stay.
I'm Anil. I again represent Mastech. So while Jasashri has said about the finance part of it, we have set up another unit called Transforming NGOs Through IT. And since Mastech's core competency is IT and delivering IT solutions, that's where we feel that we can leverage more than what we can contribute through money. And that is where we are here for right now, as to ensure or enroll people or organizations through which we can reach out to the NGOs or organizations where we can leverage our core competencies. Because for any NGO to scale up now, IT is the backbone that they need to scale up, and we will be there to support them in any sort of IT-related initiatives that they want to implement. Yes, we don't develop softwares for them, but we'll ensure that whatever is identified as the right software for them, we will help them to implement it.
Fantastic.
Hello. Hi, I am Chetan from BNP Paribas, and our objective is three-pronged in terms of, one is that we already have a foundation, which is a global foundation which works with a lot of NGOs globally, and BNP has also probably looked at India, and they have a program called Help to Help. And that's where the employees are basically initiated and motivated to basically support any NGOs here. That's one part which the CSR takes place. Second is basically also on the employee side, we have a staff welfare management which basically looks at CSR in a very strong manner. And we have mandatory kept one CSR holiday for every employee to basically go and do something with some organization which they are attached with, or they can take the help of some staff welfare management. And the third part is from the wealth management perspective, we are in touch with ultra high net worth individuals, and where we basically go and we have a resource which basically helps, and with the help of Dasra and other organizations, we have started promoting philanthropy as a very important aspect of their giving back to the society. And that's where we basically help, and Dasra helps us in basically taking them to the structured process. So the idea is to basically get involved here, understand what is the requirement, and probably take back home as to what is the key giveaway to this kind of targeted audience which we are basically looking at. So it's a marketing tool as well as for us, but more importantly, it's towards the CSR part.
That's fantastic. I think that's, we will continue on this conversation. I think we want to get started on the next session, but we will continue this conversation throughout. I think that's really critical, and I appreciate the example, sir, that you just gave about the 1 day off, because these are, again, things that if we start sharing as a community, it helps then when you go back to your own company to talk about, or even Mastech. In fact, we've had conversations with Mastech to see how even your software can help other companies track their volunteering hours, because I think that's also a critical piece, that most of you may not have an online platform or a technology tool to see what's actually happening on the ground, and perhaps Mastech can help in sort of catalyzing that amongst groups. Great, so social audit and fitting into Schedule 7, and I think that's what Noshid will be coming to talk much more about. As Gayatri said, he has 25 years of experience in providing legal support and advice to nonprofits as well as to foundations, so he'll be able to bring that up. And on the social audit perspective, we'll touch upon it today, but over the course of the year, we plan on actually doing a full day course on helping organizations think about what is the theory of change, how do you measure some of this impact, and how do you ensure what, whatever you're funding is actually creating those changes on the ground. And this is something, again, Dasra has had experience in doing with a variety of nonprofit organizations, so we're happy to share that knowledge with you guys. Great, thanks.